being a great leader for self and others. Hello, welcome and welcome to Signpost for Living with Dr. Kirsten Hunter. We have got gorgeous Vanya Hinton here. Now, Vanya and I are friends from way back. Welcome, darling.
Hi, great to be here.
So I've wanted to do this podcast for a very long time because I love Vanya very much. She's my dearest friend since we were 12 years old. And we've both lived in the world of psychology, but in different areas, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
So I'm in the clinical area and I've always thought of you as organisational. Would you say?
Yes. Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and just so I can go back, when I say Vanya's my dearest friend, I mean literally all through high school, she was my person. All through life, each decade, she's been my person. So I cannot convey how much love I have for this woman, and I'm getting to share her with the world. So I'm so excited. Here we are. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Okay. So, you've had 20 years in the field. Yes.
Yes.
And we've got organizational development and learning. Tell me about your background. And here we go. We're going to do it. It's great. Tell me about your background, my darling.
Sure. So my background is in psychology, and as Kirsten mentioned, I decided to take a different path to clinical, and I decided to work in organisational psychology, which is where you work within organisations, often large ones, but small as well, and help people be even better at their jobs and be able to be even more effective. And my particular passion has been in leadership development. So I absolutely love supporting people to flourish, supporting leaders to understand how they can be even more effective and how they can be effective and really support their own people.
It's such an interesting area, isn't it? Because whenever you have an organization with people and you've got someone in a leadership role, supervising role, and everyone's needing to work together, the amount of skill that's required with regard to communication, people's needs, various roles, feedback loops, positive morale, it's absolutely enormous, isn't
It
it?
really is. It really is. And as is so often the case worldwide, people are awesome at their jobs being an individual contributor. So they might be a fantastic nurse or a terrific salesperson or an amazing technician or a terrific teacher. And then one day someone taps them on the shoulder and says, look, you're doing really well in that, and we think you'd be great at leadership. And so often people will transfer into that next level up, but not always with enough support really around how to think differently and how to behave differently to shift from achieving in your own patch to achieving through others.
So they've really learnt their field. They've got a lot of experience in their field. They get put into a leadership position and they haven't necessarily done the training, but they're supposed to know all of this.
Yeah, that's right. And a lot of places absolutely do support their people with programs to support them to transition into leadership. And then you've got that first transition from, leading, being an individual contributor to leading a team of people. And then you need support again to be able to transition from leading a team to being a leader of leaders. That's another game changer all over. And then, of course, you can keep going up. You might be the leader of a function, the leader of the business, and into, executive territory. And at each juncture, different thinking and behaviour is really needed to be able to, be most effective in that role and support others to be their most effective.
And why do you enjoy this field? Why? I mean, clearly you're fascinated by how group dynamics work, different personalities, different leadership styles, communication styles. Why do you enjoy it so much?
I worked out pretty early on that my purpose is to support people to flourish. And when I've met with people who, say, for example, have been on a 2 or 3 day rich leadership program, particularly if it's mindsets and behaviours based, perhaps they've used a psychometric or profiling tool to understand a bit more about themselves, a bit more about other people's preferences, their self-awareness is raised, They start looking at, how they think and behave and which ways are working for them and which ways they might be able to tweak to be even more effective. And then perhaps they do some coaching and then speak with them 6 months down the track, and hearing people say, Vanya, my whole life has changed. I'm achieving more than I ever thought I could, but it feels easier. My relationships at work are better, the team's humming, and my relationships at home are better. And they talk to me about, their family and what's happening and, what's happening with their kids. For me, you can't bottle that. And seeing the impact and the ripple effect, if that one leader experiences things so differently and sees things in another way, how they are with their team members, and therefore how their team members can go home at night, and the ripple effect they have with family and community. Like, there's just so much potential. It's such an important role. And I think, everyone can relate with thinking about people who they've worked with who've been great leaders, hopefully, and also people they've learnt from where maybe everything wasn't ideal.
What not to
And
do. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And what it feels like.
I love the ripple effect that you're talking about. And I love
Mm.
hearing your passion. It's so wild. I love that you
Yeah, I
love
love
your
it.
job. Talking to people that love their job, it's just so inspiring, isn't it? It's
Yes.
contagious.
Yeah, likewise with you.
Yeah, I do love my job very much. Here I am. So, um, and you've worked with large organizations.
Mhm.
Uh, and I am really impressed that large organizations keep it personal. I mean,
Absolutely.
I don't know much about this remotely, but that sounds pretty impressive to me. And, broadly speaking, we're talking about banks. We're talking about, yeah,
Yes. Yeah,
broadly.
I've worked across all sectors. So corporate in, finance and legal services.
Right.
I've worked in not-for-profit in aged care and healthcare, and I've also worked within government. And I've worked in companies that have been smaller, so 600 odd people,
Really?
to over 100,000. So I've
Wow.
seen how, you know, things are slightly different, but Kirsten, you would not believe how similar the challenges are, no matter what the size, no matter what the year. Everyone thinks that what they're going through is unique. And of
Mm,
course, yes, there are nuances, but the similarities are much greater than the differences.
absolutely. That's wild.
Mm. And
And yep, you go.
to your point around investment, yeah, often, I guess from what you're saying, corporate, sometimes big, large companies, their view can be, oh, they're just there for the money. It's, surprising that they might invest. They can be some of the best in investing because they see the difference it makes. And they have people who are tasked with, taking responsibility for things like, one of the roles I was in was a national role, responsible for, actually a few roles I've been in have been responsible for this, for the entire leadership curriculum of an organisation and leadership capability frameworks and programs for, each level of leader, whether they're, in Australia or internationally based, and having teams design and deliver the learning for that. So absolutely, it does happen everywhere. Whether it happens at the opportune time for everyone, that's often a question. Sometimes
Mm,
people have already been a leader for a little while before, they really get the support they need. But absolutely, most organisations have their hearts in the right place.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and there are always more opportunities too.
Wow, that's so wild. So we talk in our intro here, being a great leader for self and others. Love
Mm-hmm.
that title. So being a great leader for others, can we start
Mm-hmm.
with that? What would you how would you break that down? What do you see as attributes? Is that what the framework you're thinking with being a great leader for others?
Mm-hmm. Um, so if you don't mind, if we can flip it to start with self,
Let's
because
flip.
let's
Let's
flip it.
flip. I'm all flipping. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
So to be at your best for others, you really need to start with here.
Yeah.
And I remember someone saying years ago, I might not be the CEO of the organization, but I am the CEO of this organization, and they were pointing to themselves. And what that's talking about is we each absolutely have personal responsibility for how we show up. We have personal responsibility for our thinking. We have personal responsibility for how well we recognize where we're at, and pause, and how we pause, whether we, insert breathing technique, insert coffee, insert walk around the block, whatever it might be, to then be able to come and choose our response, just like in other areas of psychology, we'd look at this. So in an organisation, the more that leaders can become aware of their own thinking, their own behaviour, and what's working for them, and things that might not be working so well for them, and opportunities to grow and really own that, then not only will their experience of the day and their work and achievement and their well-being and satisfaction be improved, so too will others' experience of them. So starting with self is a really important piece. So self-awareness, emotional intelligence, exercising your emotional intelligence muscles and tuning into how other people are feeling.
So this is you jumping completely into my world.
Of course, they're all related.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, of course, the more self-awareness you have, the more capacity you have to monitor your thoughts, emotions, and behavior when you're interacting with the person. So, the more choices you have, really, and the
Yes,
capacity to regulate yourself and to be strategic with your
absolutely.
approach. And yeah, so how do you go when you're working with someone who doesn't really have that much people call it emotional intelligence, but it's much more than that. I think it's a culture that they've come from with their previous background, their obviously their self-awareness, their communication skills, their defenses,
Mhm.
capacity to be wrong, capacity to learn. People who think that they need to be right all the time, otherwise it's a threat to them. Or how do you go when you've got someone walking in and they're really green?
Mhm. So depending on what someone walks in with, the approach would, differ slightly. And it depends whether or not, they have, for example, if they have a leadership profiling tool that's being used that might help them with greater insight into self, that can be one way. Sometimes they're walking in with information where their leader has said that they want them to be better at something. Um, but if you're really starting from scratch, then being able to, find out what is it that they'd love to see different in their role, for example.
Yep.
And, through their language, you can hear what they're frustrated about, or, are they blaming others? And then working back from there in terms of if they want things to be different, what does that look like? And then working through what are actually going to be the things that help them to get there.
Do you feel frustrated with the time you have with people? Whether or not you have enough time to get into all of this? Because you're cracking some eggs there, potentially. It's a real it's a real
Mm.
onion. How far are you going to peel back? Do you find that, you
I think
know?
absolutely you can achieve so much in just a few coaching sessions, for
Yeah.
example. Would it be ideal if people, kept coming back and kept refreshing? And I had someone, a coachee, say to me recently, "Oh, I just wish I could keep meeting with you monthly because there's always something else I want to talk about and something else that I want to work through." And yes, that would be amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, um, um, do you have I mean, I imagine that you tailor your approach very much based on what is asked of you with regard to the focus of the leadership education and the training. So I imagine you've got this wonderful like repertoire of all these, knowledge based, skill based, and do you kind of pick what's relevant to the person across from you?
Yeah, that's
Is it like
true.
that?
It can be certainly in the coaching one-on-one context. And if I'm designing a leadership program, then it's about the needs of the organization. Like, what are the strategic needs? What is the organization looking to achieve? What do they know about the needs for the particular cohort of people who will be on the program? Say, for example, they are middle level leaders, and they're needing to practice new ways of working. And
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, um, Dylan, do you Do you work in small groups, large groups? How does it work?
So all of the above. So I've
Really?
done
Really?
everything from, one-on-one coaching, and this is normal across the field. It's not just me. Done everything from one-on-one coaching through to, having conferences with hundreds of people.
Hundreds of people.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. Very cool. Imagine afterwards they all want to come and have a chat with you about their, you know, the the wake up calls that they've had, the inspiration. Do they come back and chat
Yeah,
with you
some
about that?
do, for sure. You're reminding me about a conference I facilitated some sessions at on the Gold Coast a couple of years ago. And yeah, afterwards, there were quite a few people lined up, so wanting to workshop different scenarios, which I find really rewarding as well, just to help, help different things that piqued their interest, and I was able to help guide them through.
Wow. And do you delve into different personality styles? Different, there's different models for
Mm,
that. Do you go into that area?
yes. Yeah. So of course, with my background in psychology, I was so interested in understanding people more and going into leadership development, understanding different tools has been so helpful. So, for example, the DISC inventory can be a really great tool for people to understand more about their own preferences, how they like working, how other people like working. And it's the whole intention is for people to really appreciate that, okay, I might like doing things a certain way. Other people might like doing things a different way. And oh, look, we're not actually trying to annoy each other. We just like things done differently. And how we do it is different. How we like to communicate is different. And then from there, we can look at, well, what does that mean when we're working together? And how can we work more effectively together? So in DISC, if you're speaking with someone who has more of the dominant preference, so they might come across sometimes as being a little abrupt. Results are really important to them. Moving fast is important. So they're direct often in the way that they communicate. Of course, they can morph and communicate in other ways too, but as a kind of default, can often be like that. And sometimes people with other style preferences might find that a bit grating. So learning how to adapt and to build rapport with someone who has a different style can be really
Mhm.
important. And it's about, appreciating the strengths that we each bring and learning how to adapt my style when I'm with others so that we can actually connect more effectively.
And isn't that fascinating? Because you're really learning about their personality profile, your own personality profile, and how you might be coming from completely different angles
Mm,
and knowing that it's not personal, it's not saying right or wrong, it's just different.
yeah.
And also it's I know it sounds weird, but it's not them, it's their personality. And that's,
Yes.
there's lots of people like that and there's
Yes.
lots of strengths. Like for example, I might have a client come in and they might be saying basically they want to work through a worksheet type strategy with me that's very incredibly detail orientated with very procedural kind of model. And I'll say to them, that's not my personality style
Mm,
whatsoever, as you know.
mhm.
And so I'll say, okay, that's where you're at. This is where I'm at. How about we find a way where we can work together a little bit? Let's compromise, you know what I mean?
Yes.
I'm going to
Yeah.
document exactly what the goals are and the strategies are and we're going to do lots of review and with lots of discussion, but you need to also be maybe open to me having more of a kind of eclectic approach because that's my
Yeah.
personality. And and let's really work with what the current new information is and let's be a little bit more flexible. So I really like when you put it on the table and
Mhm.
and people don't take it personally so much, if that makes
That's right.
sense.
And yes, yeah, it does. And it really helps those conversations. Suddenly people have a language around it and they realize, oh, yeah, we just like doing things differently. And there are, a variety of tools and they each have their strengths. And one of the, terrific byproducts of using any of them, particularly if you use it in a team environment, is that the whole team now have that language and can talk about oh, yes, that's right. I like things this way, but you might like things that way. Let's work exactly as you're saying, work out the compromise, work out what does that mean for how I share information with you? What does that mean? Does someone need a bit more time to process? Does someone prefer things in succinct, bullet points in email, whereas someone else might prefer a chat? So being able to tailor our approach so it meets the needs of others is helpful for everyone in an organisation and absolutely for leaders.
Yeah, very interesting. And is there a particular area that you just love to dive into? Do you have a favorite area with regard to this leadership skill set?
Anything leadership, really. And, if I think about some of the things that some of the people I coach have been having needs around recently, it's about, increasing accountability in their teams. Like they want to increase, they want to see their teams doing even better than maybe they are. So looking at ways to do that. Often people are keen to work out, how do I work more effectively with others? How do I manage complex stakeholder relationships? How do I get people to understand what I'm trying to put across and actually say yes to whatever it is that I'm wanting to do with the team? Or how do I help my team be at their best? How do I lead change? How do I have difficult conversations? How do I manage my career? There are, so many different areas, but anything leadership, yeah, I love it.
Wow. And do you get involved with conflict resolution very much? Which obviously conflict happens in teams. They go through their various stages. Do you spend a lot of time on conflict resolution skills?
Through difficult conversations and feedback models and tailoring communication and choosing your response, those sorts of things. Yes, I haven't, done dedicated mediation or anything like that. That's, its own skill set, but certainly looking at supporting leaders to really build high performing teams and being able to have sort of healthy discussion and a space where people feel safe to raise the ideas that they have that might be different to what the rest of the team think. Like that's really important so that teams can actually flourish. If you have a culture where people don't feel safe, then they won't raise the things that need to be raised. It's actually not only does it stymie innovation, it's a risk issue. Because if people don't feel comfortable to raise the things that aren't working well or the things that could be improved, then you're not going to deal with the problems, and that can really snowball.
Absolutely, because people don't address the issues and then it creates more division. They're not working as a team in unison. Resentment builds, the whole thing happens. And, I mean, crudely speaking, I think ultimately people want to feel understood,
Yes.
with what their issue is that they're bringing forward. And, so you've got to have people who have got active listening skills. You've got to have a
Yeah.
relationship where you feel safe to bring it forward. So
Yeah.
I imagine leaders routinely have to address those skills and be hopefully proactive and, even preventative in resolving that sort of conflict, situation. Yeah. So I imagine there's
Yes.
overlap here with our worlds yet again.
Absolutely. It's all related.
Wow. And where to from now for you? Like what's your passion? What are you doing? I know you've gone from you're stepping into being the consultant world. Yes? Can you explain what you're doing?
Yeah, sure. So I'm doing executive coaching and doing leadership facilitation. So at the moment, I'm an associate coach with some organisations doing coaching and also doing some direct client work and sessional academic with the university, doing some leadership programs there too, both design and delivery. And I love it. Great mix of things.
So you're now actually available to people if they want to employ you.
Yes,
Just speaking directly, yes?
I am. Yes.
So if someone wanted to say, hey, Vanya Hinton's like this extraordinary creature, which she is. And by the way, can I say to everyone, we have this running joke, which isn't a joke, but it is a joke, that I think you should go and be Prime Minister of Australia because that's my level of confidence in you. You're absolutely extraordinary, but I wouldn't wish it on you because I love you. But you're extraordinary. So if people could come and reach out and say, hey, come to our organization, how do they find you?
The best way to find me at the moment is via LinkedIn. So Vanya Hinton. And
Hinton. Yes.
that's right. Vanya, Vanya.
Yeah.
Via LinkedIn and mention this podcast.
Oh, really?
There are a few reasons why I am, I'm careful with my social presence. But so I don't just accept every invitation that comes through on LinkedIn, and I'm not on any other social platforms. So if you are interested, absolutely would love a chat. But if you mention this podcast, that'll be the ticket to entry, if you like.
There you go. So if you're a friend of Kirsten's, you're in.
Sounds good.
Kind of. Now, darling, is there anything else that you want to talk about before we wrap up? Because I'm absolutely loving this topic and we finally get to talk about it.
I know we could talk for days, and maybe we'll do a part 2 down the track, but I think that's terrific for today. Thanks, Kirsten, for the
Well,
opportunity.
thank you so much. Now, everybody, if you want to catch me online, we've got the website kirstenhunterauthor.com, Facebook and Instagram, Kirsten Hunter Author. Darling, I can't thank you enough. Thank you, everyone, for listening in. And we've got gorgeous Vanya Hinton here. Thank you, sweetie.
Thank you, Kirsten.
Bye.
Have a great bye.
Bye.